we're trying to make operations people's jobs easier in addition to the developers, right? If developers are empowered and educated in telemetry and application performance, then it translates over very well into having a well-rounded, not just development team, but an operations team and just overall engineering culture, which is very cool.
Here we go. All right. Well, here we are. We're back at it again on Tuesday for another one of John and Ed's Tech Talk Together Tuesday.
Oh, I did messed up now.
All right.
Oh goodness, it's been one.
Yeah, so it's Tuesday and here we are. John, we already have been talking about this whole telemetry situation where what can we do in getting, no aspersions to Datadog. It's an amazing tool. It's been around a long time, but this whole context of this conversation is what about when customers want to take their telemetry and then use native AWS services? So we talked about that at a high level. I wanted to double click into that. You're doing some really cool work. So maybe we can go one click lower without getting into actual code and talk about, what happens with a customer when they first call us and they say, hey, do you know anything about Datadog and maybe doing your telemetry within the AWS environment? So is that a good place to start the conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is a good one.
And maybe not so much a conversation because me being a knuckle dragger, I have nothing to add to this other than sit here and kind of like smile and say, oh, cool, that's great. So, but let's dig into it.
Let's dig into it. So, I think the most important thing, like even for whatever telemetry provider you're using, is to understand what parts of the application you're monitoring, what's important for you from a tracing perspective. And Datadog does a really good job of being able to visualize and centralize all of that, right? And we'll kind of go over just like a very simple application, but high level. When we talk about observability and like telemetry, there's three main components, which is going to be your metric data, trace data, log data, right? And Datadog can centralize all of this for you. And when we talk about breaking down into that, we talk about three different separate pipelines on how that's going to look in your migration from Datadog or any other third-party provider into AWS native services. So kind of part one is making sure your application is instrumented with the telemetry that is going to eventually be put into AWS, right? And with Datadog, same thing. When you have like your APM or your application performance monitoring, you have to implement code changes on certain parts of your code that you actually do want those metrics or traces or the application performance data, right? And so similar concept, it's going to be analyzing your code, your application, and figuring out how to replace that and get that same level of observability into your application. And so not getting super crazy technical, but you'll see here we have like our metric pipeline using OpenTelemetry and then eventually making it to Prometheus and then using Grafana for visualization. For traces, again, using OpenTelemetry, using auto instrumentation, we can do X-ray or OpenSearch. And then for logging, we can use CloudWatch, or we can also use OpenSearch as well. So depending on the different use cases and what's more comfortable for the developer and what has a lower learning curve, different things like that kind of determines which way our pipeline is going to kind of steer. And to kind of show you an example of how this works, is we kind of have this sample application here. And so with the sample application, we'll have our front end log. And this is going to be a very simple application, but the concepts are still transferable to pretty much any application design across programming languages, because we'll have our front end, then we'll have a back end API. In our case, our backend API has a posts API, which is just an endpoint to retrieve blog posts, and then we have a users API. So, and then for our data storage, we're just going to have a MongoDB backend storing both our users and our posts. So our flows is going to go front end to back end, stored in MongoDB. And to visualize that, we'll have our blog application here. So I can see we just have some example blog posts here, a simple login screen, register. And in my context, I know every time I come to this home, I make a call to our backend API that goes and retrieves all posts from the database and then displays it back on my front end here, which is why we have these 5 different posts here. These are all stored in the database. They're being retrieved from the API and then being displayed here. Now, because I know I want to be tracking the API data, I want to be tracking the traces, and then I want to also be logging my backend application data and different things like that, I've gone ahead and instrumented my application to go ahead and basically emit these metrics and kind of have a pipeline, which is our step 1. And not going into the code and all the different code changes that I've made into that, but I can show you what all that looks like. Using OpenTelemetry, I've exposed a Prometheus endpoint, which gives us our metrics for our BUILDSTR example backend here. I've gone ahead and added different labels for things that are important to me, such as the service name, the version, the environment we're in. I'm running this locally right now, so we don't have an AWS region. But I know from the way our layout is, our Mongo operations for database retrieval is probably going to be important for us, as our HTTP request durations, our request, our error count, different things like that. And so as you interact with the application, we can see here that as I hit my post API, I'm getting the status 200 for my BUILDSTR example backend. And this is all well and great, but like, what does this mean, right?
Right.
And so going back to this part, this is going to be part of our metric pipeline here. So I've instrumented OpenTelemetry. It's exposed an endpoint with Prometheus formatting that'll then be shipped over to managed service Prometheus, either via a remote write or have a scraping job go ahead and do that. But for now, before we even go into AWS, I want to confirm how all of this looks before I even go into AWS, so I can test locally, kind of shift everything left. And then as developers understand their application and they're going through key signals, you kind of get into SRE and DevOps flow of establishing SLIs, SLOs, and really letting business drive the application performance metrics that are important to you to drive those signals.
Okay. Is now a good place for me to interrupt and kind of ask a question so that I can frame it for myself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about a situation where I'm the customer and I've got everything dialed in Datadog, based on what you've said, can you bring that diagram back up?
Yeah.
Based on what you said and what you're kind of breaking down with the shift left is when we sit down for a first conversation, we're going to be digging into one, what are all of the business drivers? What is important for the business to know? Because there's maybe not an infinite, but a preponderance of data that you could generate on the activity of a given application or how users are interacting with that. So making sure to dial in based on business needs so we can really identify the technical parameters that need to be set up. And then from there, it's all about making sure that within the application, all of the right parameters are being tracked. Then once the right parameters are set up, then open telemetry can then funnel it into one of those three pipelines: metric pipeline, tracing pipeline, or logging pipeline.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about this, and with any observability tooling, is really being able to tell a story on what's happening, right? Being able to relate all of this, correlate it, and then understand what it's doing, right? Because if you don't understand what you're pushing out and putting on dashboards, it doesn't really help anybody, like we said in last week's episode, right? And so having that user journey of understanding, okay, if I have this metric that's saying my response time is becoming elevated, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, that's usually going to mean a poor user experience. That means users are waiting for our backend API. It's taking too long. In some business critical use cases, that could be people deciding to go to a competitor's website or use a different credit card or payment method or something of that nature, right? And so being able to correlate all of that is very, very important when you're doing all this application design and your telemetry as well. And so really, that's the part that we specialize in, is understanding the story that you want to tell and understanding where we need to set up these indicators so you can, one, understand your application even better, right? And then reduce your time to detect, your time to mitigate, your time to resolve, the different things like that, right? We're trying to make operations people's jobs easier in addition to the developers, right? And if developers are empowered and educated in telemetry and application performance, then it translates over very well into having a well-rounded, not just development team, but an operations team and just overall engineering culture, which is very cool. So going back to this metrics pipeline, now that I've emitted metrics on this endpoint, I can kind of simulate how this is going to look shipping it to manage Prometheus in AWS locally before I even deploy it by seeing how it actually looks in Prometheus, right? So I've gone ahead and deployed a Prometheus instance locally just using Docker. And so now I have a Prometheus UI. And from my UI, I can explore metrics that are available to me. And I can see all the metrics that I was emitting from my application are actually available here. And then I can kind of do some visualizations on this. So for example, if I wanted to look at my HTTP request totals, go ahead and add that here. And again, this is running locally, so I wouldn't expect a ton of traffic on here. but I can see I do have a couple hits at this time, and then I had a couple hits over here to have eight over here or over here, and then I can see all this different metadata, such as the environment, where it's coming from, the job, the path. In this case, it was getting all my posts for my backend dev. So this is super powerful, right? Now, in addition to having these metrics, we kind of have the second part of this, which is the tracing, right? And so to supplement our metric data, if we wanted to see, going back to that example with the HTTP request seconds, right? If we wanted to go in and drill down to see what was happening on why our response times are starting to increase or something of that nature, if we had a Prometheus dashboard that went ahead and showed that we had high response times, right? Now we can go and visualize our traces. So I've gone ahead and using OpenTelemetry, I've exposed the tracing data.
Okay.
And this is how a trace would look. And so there's a couple different ways you can do this, but so now using time periods, I can see for the last 30 minutes, just looking at my Git/API post, which is getting all my blog posts for my front end app, all this part here. If I wanted to drill down and see every single one of these calls, it'll show me the time it took for this entire end-to-end flow locally. So 30 milliseconds, 16 milliseconds, 42 milliseconds, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool. But if I wanted even more data on this, I can see this exact flow. So if we go back to our application flow here from earlier, we have our front end calling our back end, making a DB call, and then returning the response, right? But the tracing data actually allows us to visualize every single one of those hops. So I can see that when this API gets called, it goes through all my code. It's going through the middleware, goes to my request handler, my router, and then this mongoose.post.find. This is actually the MongoDB plugin for Node.js. And so I can see here, this particular part was by far my longest time of execution at 17.35 milliseconds, right?
Yep.
And so now I'm able to see, okay, if there was a problem with MongoDB taking way too long, I can start debugging and troubleshooting. Maybe this means, hey, I need to maybe move my MongoDB instance closer, change the subnet, maybe provision more resources, different things like this. But understanding your traces now lets you have that power to drill down into that. And this all started from our metrics going down into our tracing and really having that observability.
So back to like the first part of the framing, when I was thinking about, all right, in this type of situation where you have a customer that's on Datadog or some other third-party telemetry provider, part of this process is going to be going through and making sure to identify business needs, identify SLI, SLO, and then be able to reverse engineer within the system so that all of those signals are being sent out through OpenTelemetry into ultimately into the AWS environment.
Yes, sir.
Now, you didn't talk about this, but with the different tooling options, is the end result that all of the data gets funneled into a table and then has QuickSight on top of it that can show real-time analytics of what's happening within the application?
Great question. So with every single one of the telemetry pipelines. So for metric data, usually your visualization is going to come from Grafana, which is a very popular tool. There's basically two main observability stacks from like a DevOps and operations perspective. There's what they call a gap stack and then like an ELK stack. And what gap stack is Grafana, Alert Manager, and Prometheus. And then the ELK stack is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. So we're using very popular frameworks already. In our case, Amazon has gone ahead and kind of put their own spin on Elasticsearch and made it the OpenSearch service. So in our case, instead of using QuickSight for any of that visualization data, we would be using Grafana. X-Ray has its kind of own visualization service, but then we can also use the OpenSearch service, and then for visualization further, we can use Kibana for OpenSearch as well. Now, but because you have control of all your data and you're bringing all that data, or not bringing it all, but like consolidating all that data and formatting all that data and keeping it in AWS, there are tons of potentials for putting AI or data analytics onto all of your data now as well. And so you could definitely start thinking about doing maybe like anomaly detection for your logs using maybe like a SageMaker or something of that instance, right? And which opens up a world of opportunity as well. And having that potential and that opportunity is very, very, very powerful. Datadog does give you, and Dynatrace actually is another monitoring tool, but a lot of these third-party providers are also trying to implement AI into their observability platforms, right? And without a solid foundation, though, the AI or the data really doesn't necessarily mean that the AI is going to enhance it, right? So by first instrumenting your application, getting a strong foundation for your metric, trace, and then log data, you definitely have the opportunity to build AI models around that and then be able to visualize different things and alert on different things in the future using any visualization tool, whether that's QuickSight or anything of that as well.
And then how do the like if we're going to set up alerts for any tracing or logging or metric that is outside of a safe parameter, how is the alerting feature going to work?
Great question. So
thank you.
There are a couple different ways to set up alerting. Again, going back to that gap stack where we have like Grafana, Alert Manager, and Prometheus, Prometheus. Alert Manager is normally what takes care of that alerting piece, right?
Okay.
And that's an open source tool. However, when you go to Amazon Managed Service for both Prometheus and Grafana, it actually comes in with a built-in tooling to send email notifications using SNS, which is pretty cool, which enables you to not only send emails, but allows you to send that to like any other messaging tool or platform or ticketing system of your choice, whether that's a Slack notification for a dev environment, or creating tickets if you have maybe like a ServiceNow instance, right, or a Freshdesk, something of that nature. So you have all that reporting and analytics just from a ticketing perspective. And same thing with like our logs and traces and different things like that is like we can set up like CloudWatch alerts or something of that nature to alert on those telemetry points as well.
Okay. So next time we talk, it seems like a good thing for us to do would really to be at a high level run through from start to finish what it would look like to have the initial conversation about evaluating what the current environment and telemetry looks like, and then the steps that we would take to go from that assessment evaluation all the way through to looking at the real-time analytics or visualization within Grafana.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be part 2. I guess part 3. I guess technically part 3 because we kind of touched base on it last week.
Yeah, that's right. So, just in terms of also kind of framing, how complicated is this? Like, if you have a large application that you're wanting to migrate your telemetry to AWS, is this something that is so onerous that nobody should ever try it? You should only ever have a partner do it? Is it something that highly technical people could do on their own? Is it something that is worthwhile? Like, what, let's kind of talk about the framing of how people should be thinking about this from exploring it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, it's always going to come down to timelines, priorities, different things like that, right? Like engineering capacity. However, depending on the engineering team size, it could be a very tedious process and complicated if it's either like a legacy application or has tribal knowledge or something of that nature, or maybe a very distributed system where we need to make sure that there's correlation between all the different hops in a system, right? So depending on the complexity of the application and how it's distributed, and if it's distributed across multiple clouds or accounts or different things like that, right? If obviously a simple app like this that I'm demoing, hey, maybe you knock that out in a week, you give it to your senior dev and he's like, I got this. I'll rip out all the Datadog stuff. Boom, we're in open telemetry, push it out next sprint. Right. But obviously, I think the benefits of going with a partner is understanding kind of the caveats of going from a Datadog to going all AWS cloud native, giving that planning, understanding, and letting like kind of business value drive our decisions here, and then implementing best practices, DevOps, SRE, while we design and build all of this, and then obviously have that knowledge transfer and everything afterwards as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, because all of these situations at the end of the day really come down to business value. Like, buy, build, in-house, outsource, augment your team. But I think maybe the key takeaway is, with your and the team's background with development and SRE and deploying within the AWS environment, this isn't something that's brand new that we're gonna just cutting our teeth on. This has been bread and butter of what you've worked on for a long time, right?
Definitely. Very passionate about this, and it's been very exciting even just doing the example application to put this all together and working through a lot of the caveats and the gotchas and different things like that. Because even depending on the programming languages, like even understanding the limitations of the open telemetry modules for programming language specific and overcoming those different gaps, and really making sure that you have a standardization across all your telemetry, so you're able to make sense and correlate all of it at the end of the day as well. Because you can have all this data, but if you can't correlate it and organize it effectively, it's also not useful.
Right. Well, I think this is a good place to pause. Anything else you wanted to say last minute about this?
Shoot, no, I can't wait till next week though, so we can actually show all of it in AWS and how all that looks.
Yeah, that'll be great. Have you been writing it all?
You know, I need to start. I've been riding my indoor bike, which is very, very boring.
Sure.
But I'm still recovering from my ankle injury.
Yeah.
And so I hope to start riding soon because it's 82 degrees outside right now. It's beautiful.
82?
82. Though it's 20 mile per hour winds, which is not fun.
I don't know that that's beautiful.
But having sun and have not ridden since last year, I would still probably do it.
God, it's a balmy 49 here. I don't think it's big. Yeah, that's warm for us. Like, for maybe not necessarily out of character, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like spring's here. It's happening. It's happening.
You have to come down to Texas and get a ride in.
Yeah, I'll get like 2 miles and be like, dear God.
Oh, yes. Shit, that is another thing.
Yeah, I've just been riding indoor also. So I did 10 miles the other day, and then I did 10 miles last night. I'm gonna try and do another 10 tonight. So just trying to get back at it because some time ago, one of my son's friend's dad was like, "Hey, let's do this ride. I'm just doing 30 miles," and I was like, "Yeah, no problem," because I'm in my head, I'm still, 15 years younger than I actually am, and I'm riding, 200 miles a week, and it wasn't a pleasant 30. So
I feel that. I think last week I think it was 70 miles, which on the indoor is so boring. So boring. It's just an hour sitting. But I've been watching Chicago MD. Chicago MD?
okay,
Chicago Med is what I've been watching.
all right.
And it's been helping pass the time. I've heard good things about Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso might be the next show I binge watch.
Ted Lasso is good. I didn't get into that until it was like late last year. I watched it, and I came home from a trip, and my wife was like, "Hey, watch this show with me." And I was like, "I already watched too much television as it is. I don't need another show." She's like, "Please just watch the first episode." So I was like, "All right, fine, I'll watch." And also when there's like a hype cycle of like everybody loves Ted Lasso, I'm just kind of like, maybe not. And I loved it. I like.
Did you?
Yeah,
oh my goodness!
It was phenomenal. Yeah.
What is the actor's name that plays Ted Lasso? He's such a familiar face. I just never remember his name.
Killing me. Anybody who made it this far in the conversation, they're like, "Oh my God, it's Jason Sudeikis! Shut up." It's really amazing when you have somebody who is a funny comedian, but then they flip over and they also can do serious or emotional or and the show does a really great job of being funny and being serious at the same time.
Shoot, I'll have to
You gotta watch it, man.
Yeah.
I think that good actors like that, like Jason Sudeikis, are like a John Krasinski, where he's he's a actor who's like waiting tables, and he then lands this career-changing gig with The Office, and then he ends up becoming playing a retired SEAL in 13 Hours. And then doing like Jack Ryan, and so it's just, and then he ends up writing, what was the thriller that he wrote? Quiet Place, is that what it's called?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
he freaking wrote that. Like, I think he wrote it and directed it.
I think you're right. He's great too. Jack Ryan was fantastic. It was so good.
Yeah, he's a great actor. So, when I was on the bike. Not last time, but the time before that, I was watching Slow Horses, which Gary Oldman is another one of those like just ubiquitous actors, like from Commissioner Gordon to Sirius Black, and you know, the main, I don't even remember the character's name, but the main bad guy in Fifth Element, and like, great actor. So
I always remember Fifth Element from Multipass.
I don't remember that part of it.
It's
I just remember the opera scene.
Oh, the opera scene was good too. Yeah.
It's such a wild, like, avant-garde, weird tech, sci-fi, fun, semi-action comic book movie.
What year did that come out in? Was it the 90s?
Like 2,000 years ago? Like, it's so old. It's so old. '97.
Dang. I was 5.
A while ago, man.
Oh shoot.
That's back when Bruce Willis had hair. When did
Wow, he did have hair in that movie. Right?
Yeah, he did. He did.
He also had hair. Was it Die Hard? The first Die Hard?
Yeah.
I don't know if he had it in the second Die Hard.
When did Die Hard come out? Oh, I forgot about 12 Monkeys. That's a fucking good movie. Well, Die Hard 2 was 1990.
Oh wow, even older.
Oh, it's a book? I didn't know there's a book.
It does blow my mind how much source material is used from books. Like
88.
obviously it makes sense. 88. Wow.
That's still such a good movie.
Really is.
Yeah. I think every time I walk around barefoot on carpet, I think about him, like, talking about, you know, rubbing his feet in the carpet and why he's running around barefoot throughout. Yeah. Pretty sure every time I walk barefoot on carpet, I think about that.
That's hilarious. No, I'm gonna start thinking about it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. Do you ever go full David Goggins and just do nothing? Like no music, no shows, no anything, just like the torture fest?
No. My brother was I didn't know who David Goggins was for the longest time, but my brother last year I went to go visit him and he was like, "Who's gonna lift the boats?" And I was like, "Bro, what are you saying, dude?" And then he was like, "Let me show you." And then he put me on this whole David Goggins kick, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this dude is ridiculous."
Yeah.
His mental toughness is on a different level.
Have you seen the X-rays of his like knee before he had his knee repaired?
No.
Yeah, man, he was running bone on bone.
And it's not like he was running like, "Oh, let me just go run a quick mile." He's like, "Oh, let me go run across the country."
You know
No
what
training.
RAM is? You know what RAM is, right? Okay, so I had heard about RAM a long time ago. RAM is Race Across America. It's a 3,000-mile race that goes from Southern California across the country. I think they end in New York. And when I read about it before I found out about Goggins, actually no, I didn't read about it. It was an NPR, like some NPR article about so listening to the radio. And they had this story about people who they get so tired from riding, their neck muscles can't hold their head up, and so people will like have their crew duct tape their head like back so that they can like you're allowed like 3 bikes, a crew, you can't ever draft behind your van.
Mm-hmm.
They can pull up alongside you. There's different stipulations. Nobody can ever provide like forward momentum. Like it's just, whatever. And this, in the little news article or the radio article, they were talking about one of the guys who had been like now this was way before the Ukraine war, but he was some kind of like, he and his team were like Ukrainian mercenaries or something like that. And so his, who had done a whole bunch of fighting in like Afghanistan, and he was hallucinating. He was hallucinating that there were these like, fighters behind him trying to kill him, and his like team was like they're gonna get you, ride harder. So then in 2008, I was training for my first real triathlon, and actually no, it was 2007. I had trained for my first marathon. Actually, it's the only marathon I've done, and I got like a subscription to Runner's World in November. Let me see if I got it right. I think it's November of 2007. David Goggins and a whole bunch of other people, and actually Chrissy Wellington. I have a clip of that month. They had cameos of each of these people. I already knew who Chrissy Wellington was, but her kind of mantra was Rudyard Kipling's "If," the poem, and it's all about like if you can do all these things. And I literally have that clipped. I like ripped it out of the magazine, and like it's framed on my wall because so her inspirational story is Kona 2000. I think it's Kona 2007. It might have been Kona 2006, somewhere around there. She was first out of the water. She was like 13th overall, but way ahead of all the other women. And on her bike, she got a flat. And so she like, and they're doing tubeless, so she puts her CO2 in and like misses it.
No.
And then second one misses it, so she's got nothing. And so she's asking people, hey, throw me a can. Literally, dudes are just passing her, boom, 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 nothing. And the first like 30 chicks that pass her like are like, forget you, like we're just, So she finally, somebody throws her a can. She gets it. Boom. She just takes off. She passes all of those chicks between that and the run. She came in something like 13th overall.
Oh my goodness.
And like the distance between her and the next woman was just insane. And that's after a huge, so the mental fortitude of that chick, she's like on par with David Goggins. But that's when I found out about David Goggins. He was still a SEAL at the time. So I've been kind of like intrigued by the mental fortitude of what you can do. And, 250-pound Navy SEAL built like a linebacker who then does like a crazy leg workout, like destroy you bodybuilder style leg workout to keep up with his Master Chief, to show his Master Chief that he's tough. And then the next day runs a 100-mile race around a 1 mile track. That's where he met Jesse. What's his name? Jesse Itzler. His wife. I never remember her name. She owns Spanx.
Okay. And
then Jesse's another entrepreneur. Jesse was there running it as a team, like it's a relay race. Everybody else, he like showed up with like muscle milk and like peanut butter crackers and a lawn chair. Like, and he didn't have a crew. He didn't have a team. He didn't have proper hydration.
I'm gonna lift the boats.
Yeah, and then like he by like mile 26 or something like that, he was like, my body was just done. And he was like, he was like way behind his pace. And he was doing all of this because he wanted to run Badwater to raise money for kids of his friends that had been KIA. And so he had to like jump through all these hoops to do it. Anyways, I mean, so many other podcasts, that you can listen to him instead of my stupid rendition of it. But he basically is like, let me just walk. And then he ends up like just turning on the juice and running and just nonstop running. Like not even stress fractures, like broken metatarsals in his feet. Full on kidney failure. And he said when he was done, I think about this sometimes, where he is like, his mom was dating a doctor, his wife was a nurse, and they're like, we have to take you to the hospital. He's like, no. He's like, just let me enjoy this. They're like, you're gonna die. He's like, I know. I just need to enjoy this. I did it. I need to connect with the pain and the victory. I was like, who is this guy? Well, that's not even the crazy part. Fast forward a month later, he's signed up for the Las Vegas Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, he's still 250 pounds. He's like, I can barely walk. Bro, he still has broken bones in his feet. A month before he had just had kidney failure. And he's like, I'm not going to run. I'll just kind of walk, but I'm going to finish the course.
Famous last words.
He completes it at like right around 3 hours or sub 3 hours. He qualifies for Boston at 250 pounds, broken bones in his feet. And that's how he started this career. And people will, like he says it all the time. People go, do you what do you love about riding? He's like, no, I hate it. I hate it. I hate running. I hate riding. And then he's this like crazy learning disabilities and fear of the public, and he becomes a public speaker and writes 2 books and like.
Oh my goodness. Different level for sure.
Yeah, he's if you have heroes and if you look at people to go, what's possible and how can I do awesome things? There's humans out there that are doing things. And it's not even like that there's something amazing about David Goggins. There is. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but it's more like we are amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyways, we could get really weird and woo woo, but I'm not going to. So,
shoot. Honestly, I think ending on "We are amazing" is a pretty good stopping point. So,
yeah. All right, dude. Well, thanks for walking me through that, and then next time it'll be really great to see like from beginning conversation all the way to what does it look like in AWS. So that'll be really exciting.
Super excited to show us.
All right, cool, man.
Till the next time. Yeah.
Let's see.
Laters.